Welcome everybody to the patch preview for League of Legends. I'm Freak and I'm here with Morello, and we're going to talk about some of the changes coming up in the next patch. So first off, we're taking some really big changes to Annie. What are the goals with that whole overhaul?
Annie at level 6 is probably one of the biggest nightmares in our entire game. Pretty much from level 6 on, she gets weaker and weaker towards the end of the game until she is regulated into a really stun bot. So what we did is the typical want to make it better late game kind of changes, which is lower the bases a little bit and up the AP ratios. Annie has really outdated mana costs, so we just wanted to take those mana costs down so that if you do burst and manage to live through some of the fight and can contribute longer, you're actually rewarded by being able to continue to pump out damage. Tibbers has always been kind of a giant AoE nuke that also kind of gives you this pet, so we really wanted to make Tibbers feel impactful and powerful, so we really buffed up his numbers, especially as you rank him up, his survivability, his damage. Those things are all being improved.
Alistair's been a hot topic since his remake a few weeks back. What are we doing with him this time?
While we're happy with the direction of having him have a little bit more offensive punch and be able to actually go out and do some damage and feel a little heroic, we just gave him way too much damage. So we have to take those AP ratios down. They're really overpowered right now. The base damage on Headbutt is partially a contributing factor to some of the early game bursts he has, so we need to also take a little on the base there. Originally, Alistair was really an initiation CC and support tank, and while he still has some of that flavor, now that he actually has some meaningful damage and damage scaling, that health per level is unnecessary power that's not providing a lot of gameplay for him, so we're going to take that down more to what you'd see in a standard tank.
Aurelia's also been a really common topic of discussion. What are we changing on her exactly?
Since she is still highly sustainable, we're going to push some of the damage on the Q down, which is contributing to a lot of her upfront burst. You know, if she's going to stay in there, heal up, sustain, have some tankiness, have that CC reduction, the burst is just not an acceptable portion of that whole trifecta there, so we needed to take the burst down. Then we did a lot of work on the Transcendent Blades. We want you to build offense, but there's kind of a couple of different build paths on the offense, so we wanted to make you feel good for using either of those for AP or AD, so now is additive and takes your AP and AD together to add to the damage of Transcendent Blades. We didn't like how much Aurelia could essentially get into a combat, harass you, get you pretty low, and she could use her ultimate to farm a minion wave to get back to full health. Transcendent Blades now does half healing versus minions. It should do the full damage, so you can still farm with it, you can still use it to hit champions just as well. You can even still heal off champions. We just don't want you farming health off of minions with Transcendent Blades. We think that's kind of an interaction that's not terribly fun and is also causing a lot of power problems with Aurelia. So when you're fighting Aurelia and you go, man, she's really killing me, you don't have a good, clear insight into what items you should be building. We wanted to fix that by taking the magical damage portion off of Transcendent Blades and turning it into physical, so that armor should be kind of the obvious answer of how you defend against Aurelia.
Hextech Revolver is getting changed this patch as well. What's our goal with that?
We decided to go with unique passive on it instead of nerfing the number. The reason being it's hard, if not impossible, to make a stacked version of that item feel not overpowered or balanced and make a single version of that item feel good and satisfying as well. It keeps us from allowing us to make Hextech Revolver feel good to just get one on a caster, and we'd like to be able to do that.
Kog'Maw is getting some really cool buffs this patch. What are we aiming at with these?
How people are actually playing Kog'Maw effectively is they're using proc and attack speed and heavy magic damage builds on him. So we have this armor shred on his Q, which really just isn't helping him at all. So we thought it was a pretty obvious change to go ahead and let that shred MR instead. We increased the range by a little bit because Kog is a very unsafe long-range champion, and as soon as somebody's close enough to really use the Q, you're probably going to die. Give him a little shorter cooldown on the W, which we also feel is really core to his kit. He's really reliant on that W to be up to do meaningful damage, especially in these magic proc builds. So we wanted to make that more available more often. We widened the E pool for the goop quite a bit. The point of that is to give him, since he doesn't have an escape, he has to rely on that E to slow champions who are on the way to come get him before they get there. This should let you use it reactively a little bit better.
So the newest champion, Vayne, is getting quite a lot of changes to her. What are we aiming at with these nerfs?
First, let's talk about the Q's mana cost. Right now, she can tumble in, shoot people, and harass exceptionally well, but she can do it very often because of that low mana cost. She's not using the resources other people are to trade blows with her a lot. It's hopefully going to feel really minor for Vayne players, but it's going to be noticeable over the course of 5-10 minutes of back and forth lane play. We wanted to lower the true damage on W a little bit. True damage percentage health, I don't actually think is a conceptual problem, but I think the number might have just been a little too high on that, and it's basically making it so You know, in the mid game, and again, that kind of late laning phase situation, Vayne is actually pumping out a lot of damage, and with the safety of her being able to stealth in her ultimate, roll around, kind of get around and be a slippery character anyway, she was bursting just a little bit harder than we wanted to, so that was another place we could shave a little bit of damage safely. And for Condemn, there's a lot of just shoot E at the dude and do damage, and this skill should be about that pinning to wall play wherever possible, so to encourage that, we're removing a little bit of damage off of just shooting a guy with it straight up. These nerfs together, as a whole, should make Vayne's overall burst feel lower, and since her sustain is already very good, I think that's acceptable.
Thanks for tuning in to the League of Legends patch preview. Please subscribe to the Riot Games YouTube channel up top, and let us know down below in the comments what improvements we can make to this series.